in Northmore, and I was born and raised here in Smith County. And I'm 70 years old past. I was 70 years old this past December the 8th.
Tell us something about your school days.
Back when I was going to school out to Henry Scott High School, Miss Georgia Morgan was my first teacher. And we used to have to walk from Robert E. Lee, to Henry Scott to John Tyler, downtown, at the old John Tyler School down there where Caldwell Auditorium is now. That was John Tyler. That's where John Tyler High School was. We used to have to walk down there to pick up the old book that they've used for 2 or 3 years and give them to us. We'd walk back to the school with them. We did that for years because we couldn't go inside the school. We had to stand on the outside. And if it was raining, we just had to stand out there in the rain and whatever, the cold, and walk back to school with those old books.
What was the location of the Henry Scott High School at that time?
It was on North Border, on North Border Street.
When you were in your teens and 20s, what did you do for entertainment? Where did y'all go for fun?
Well, we was during the school time, we had she first had a old bell he'd come made out like a lodestone deal. He had an iron, he'd ring it between. We'd be up there in the grove, up there playing around with the girls and stuff. And he'd come up and ring that bell where we could hear it when he'd take in school in the morning. In the morning, they'd hang up there in the grove, and at 12 o'clock, we'd just all be all around there up in that grove, kind of like wood was on each side. And it was wide enough for cars to go down through there, but it wasn't no cars. They wouldn't let cars go down through there. Just a big trail, and they called it the Grove.
Where was that located?
I was located between Cheney Hall and the school. See, back to the school. That road run all the way from Cheney Hall back to the school. And it was what's the name of that street? Arthur Carroll had a little old barbecue pit on the corner of Cheney Hall, and that road run right across and diagonal to the school.
Nutbush?
Nutbush.
What else did you do while you were in school?
Well, now once a month or ever, we had a theater downtown called the Majestic. Now they would go down. You could go to the show once a week down there on Saturdays, and that's about all. Because they didn't want black folk downtown at night hanging around, so you could. And kids especially, they're not unless they with the parents. So we never did get a chance to go down there. In later years, they came in the 30s, I believe it was. They built a show they called the Palace Theater. It cost 10 cents to go in. And they marched us, different classes would go, they'd show movies down there. And then we'd go and show one film, and then that class would be dismissed and go back to the school, and some would be, they'd have them rotating. We'd take a day off and then rotate all the classes at school and go to the show. When that was most of the time that, during school, that's about all we had. And then Professor Latin came and started basketball. Then later, Professor Love started football. Well, then I played football until we came out of school. But we used to have to get the old uniforms from John Tyler to even play football then, because they wouldn't allow to give the school enough money to buy uniforms for the black school.
Tell me about the jobs that you've had.
Well, when I came out of school, then the first thing, well, I worked at the Mother Francis Hospital right after New London School blowed up. I was out there when they was bringing them kids and things in there, and I was making $7.50 a week, and we get paid every 2 weeks. A friend of mine, Calvin Swift, me and him, we went all the way through school together, played football together, and we just got a job together. And we stayed out there until then he started working for the Cotton Belt, and I did too. And then I stayed at Cotton Belt for a long time. Factory bench down there, it was good working down there, 'cause white and black got along real good down there. Everybody worked together. That's one thing I said about it. That was, and it was still integrated around here pretty bad, but down there, most all of them worked real good together, 'cause we had black mechanics and machinist helpers and different things, and everybody just got along good down there. And I got a promotion to boiler maker helper. And of course, my daddy didn't want me working no more boilers and things, so I stayed in there for a good while, and then they had a machinist job up, so my daddy was a machinist helper. So then that's what I had. I got promoted to a machinist helper. I visited in on the job, that's why I left and went into service.
What year was it that you went into service?
In 1940.
Okay. What'd you do when you got out of the service?
I went back, because they had to give you a job back. And then when I got back, well, I went back to the railroad company. And stayed there, I guess, about a year and a half, and then 2 years. And then they laid off 185 men. And they never did call all those people back. And then I just jogged around painting, doing little things, and then I got a job with the Tyler Pipe, and I stayed up there about nearly 3 years, going on 4, and they got laid off up there. And then I started to work at the Brown Petroleum Building. And I stayed there 28 years, going on 29. And I had working with the city and county health department, and I stayed 19 years. So when I retired from one, I retired from the other.
What are you doing now to stay busy?
Well, I tell you, if a man keep all his homework around the house and keep it up, well, he ain't gonna have time to do nothing else. I do a little painting around now and do security work. Of course, I had started joining the security agency way back on with my dad-in-law, who lived with me and my brother-in-law. And then we just still been doing this a long time, and I still do that security work.
Tell me of the progress, if any, of civil rights for blacks in Tyler. Are blacks better off in Tyler today than, say, 40 years ago?
Well, I said they are, because way back when we was coming up, well, there's a lot of things that we doing now that we couldn't even do back then. So we go to town about once a week, or maybe twice a week. You have to be with your parents, because white boys and things mail you too much. And you get out in town to buy something, you couldn't try it on. You just have to guess. And if you buy a suit, you had to hold it up and see well, you know, they wouldn't let you put it on. So you just had to go through a whole lot of stuff to buy anything. Like down there by the Majestic Theater that I stayed a while ago, they had old Rodney Campbell. His daddy had a candy house there where they made candy, and Rodney was little, and he was standing on an apple box making hamburgers. And he was the only one downtown would let blacks come in there and eat. Was Rodney Campbell.
What's the biggest change in your life and why?
Well, the biggest change in my life was when I got married. I just wanted to Wanted a wife, and we just got married. We made up our own mind. We were ready, because we went together about 6 years before we got married.
Did you or do you belong to any social club or fraternity or church group?
Yeah, I once belonged to the Royal Felder Club. That's the first one I joined. I really didn't like to sit them, so I just got out, and then it was quite a few number of years before I joined anything else. And then I joined we organized a club called the Chapter L of the Civic, Social and Civic Club, and I've been in that, I guess, ever since '56. In the church, I've been in St. Mary Baptist Church, I guess about 60 years. I was baptized in True Vine Baptist Church. And then I was John North Star, way back, in churches, they used to split, one go one way and one go another. I just fell in love with my wife, doll at St. Mary, and I just started going out there. And that's where I am right now.
In the history of the black race, what do you want the general public to know and why?
Well, there's a lot of things that we're back on that the people really didn't know, and we used to have a bus that come out here. We had an old guy come out that used to drive the bus, and his wife would take up a whole seat, and you come in the North Tower, there wouldn't be nothing but black people on there, because that's the only one that lived out here. And he'd make statements to his wife, well, we're going to Niggerville now. And so they kept on raising sand about him hauling his wife, taking up a whole seat. So they had to cut that out. Well, she'd be riding with him and taking up a whole seat, and everybody would be standing up, and she'd be sitting up there on one seat. So we cut that out. So it's gradually going on until we had things organized on that bus. But way back there, right here in North Tyler, we didn't have about 3 or 4 phones out here, because there wasn't nothing much out here in North Tyler. Nobody to do nothing. Down there by Texas College, they used to have a little train station down there they called Galloway, where a lot of students would be coming in on the train down there, going to Texas College. We used to have a train that run from Minnesota to Troop, and come right through Tyler. Used to call it the Iron Gin. We had a lot of black people on the weekend. They'd run a special train from Tyler to Dallas on that. People lie, they call them excursions. You go up one day and come back at night. A lot of people used to do that, ride them trains up there and come back. We used to go down there and watch the train come in and leave.
Is there anything else that you'd like to just tell us about? Any of the things that you've seen that changed, anything that you'd like to leave? Let everybody know about that happened?
Oh, well, now, we can run back downtown like we'd be downtown. You had one side of the courthouse, say the seats to sit on. Well, they eventually they took up all the seats, because they had say seats for the Negroes to sit down in, and then they started voting and going on. When the voting started, well, then that's when the seats was moving, because a lot of these people wanted to get in office and things, and when the voting time started, when they let black people vote, well, then that kind of helped out everywhere. That really put something on their mind, because a lot of people wanted to get in office. So then that's what made it a lot of better for all the black people all throughout the United States. because that voting business, that's what got it started. Because they never would let them vote, they'd been still treating black people like they wanted to. But see, after they started getting the votes in there, well, then they know the man that wasn't gonna help them, well, then he couldn't get in office, so they voted him out of that. So I'd like to say to all of the youngsters who try to live a good, sweet life, and, you know, so if they got a better opportunity than we had. We got a library down there now in town where we can go in there. But we had one library, but you couldn't go in there because you had the wrong color. Talking about to go to the library and get a book? No, that was out. Now, if you had a good white person to go get a book for you, then you could get them get one for you and read it and take it back. And then the other white folks get mad at him if they know you they letting the Negro have a book. So I think in Smith County, in general, it has come a long way.
Is there any particular person that had influence on your life to make you what you are?
Yeah, well, during the time we were back there, well, my daddy had a lot of friends, old friends that they worked with, and they used to call me Mr. Fatty. And a fellow on the East End named Mr. Will Martin, and Joe Pierce, Henry McGee. I can name several. You should just sit around and talk, and bring me up on different things, and that really inspired me. And my dad, he always talked to me about how to do on the job and how to hold a job, and I was inspired by a lot of people. And my pastor, my first pastor, when he died, both of them, Reverend Peterson and Reverend Preston, all of them was dead. But the longest one that I know anything about was Reverend Williams. But they always could try to inspire me about life, and never forget the church. So that's the most important organization that you belong to, is the church.
Is there anything else that you just like to share with us? And
Well, I'd like to say
history or
I'd like to say that I hope all the young people would try to make the best out of life. And like stuff going on now, we didn't know anything about dope. If we did, we didn't know what it was. And I hope all the young people would realize that, and some of the older too, to let that stuff alone and try to live a happy life. Because it's not going to do anything but mess up your whole life and your families and everything else. And I just like to share that with them. Because I sure would like to see them just forget that stuff and go on and be happy.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope what you've said is going to be of some help to somebody that gets to listen to it.
Okay, well, I appreciate trying to help you anything you can do. Okay, now on my interview to the Carnegie organization, I'm giving them permission to use this interview anywhere they want to.
What is your name, Address and age.
My name is Felder Sanders. My address is 2707 North Border. I was born June 18th, 1909.
Where were you born?
I was born in Tyler, Texas, Smith County.
Have you lived in Tyler all your life?
I've lived in Tyler 35 years. I was in the Navy 3 years. I worked when I was at Felder Music Company with North American Aviation. And I came back to Tyler, and I've been back in Tyler now approximately 35, 40 years.
Tell me about your school days.
The school days, I went to W.A. Peete School, and they was over on, right off of Herndon Street. It used to be up in the Grove over there. And the school burned down, and we went to school in the church, which is the Church of God in Christ. We went to that church for about 3 years. And I finished my schooling at Emmett Scott High School on North Border shortly after the school had burned down. And my sports and my activities while I was in school, my teachers was Professor Austin and Professor Ford and Miss Finch, and Miss Mosley, and many others. Right at this time, I can't remember all of them.
When you were in your teens and 20s, what did you do for entertainment? Where did you go to have fun?
Well, back there then, our biggest day would be like the Emancipation Day, where we would have a big barbecue, kill cattle and have ice cream, homemade ice cream, and then we would play baseball, and then my chief entertainment was playing cards and playing dominoes. I loved that. And we played dominoes so much so that we had a club, and a friend of mine by the name of Cordero, who is dead right at this present time, he and we teamed up as partners, and we had a club then, back there then, about 5 couples, and we used to play in tournaments. And then we always gave away prizes, and the prizes was rather extensive. And we had in my uncle's repair shop where he repaired furniture, we cleaned that out, and we made that our clubhouse, and we played dominoes about twice a week. All 10 of us would gather up, and there we would have quite a good time.
What was the name of that club? Did they have
We
a name?
didn't know the name of it, didn't have no name, but I was playing, and when we played cards, that was altogether different. Now this was the domino club that we played, where we had this, it was a club, but we didn't have a name for it. But when we played cards, we played with both women, the opposite sex, all of us played. Then there, we must have had about, we must have had about 10 couples. Then we would have set up, say, like 2 or 3 tables set up. Then as you would win and lose, we had a winning table, and whoever won kept winning and winning. He sat at this table. But when the time came, he was reduced on back to the table where you lost the most. But yet we had it all set up that it was very, very interesting.
What about jobs? What was the type of job? What type of jobs did you have,
Well,
as you can remember?
the first job that I had in my life was working for Uncle John Johnson. I never will forget that. I worked for him, I guess, in my young school days, and I made the first dollar I ever made in my life. I was making $1 a week, and he paid me that week, and he gave me a silver dollar. I'll never forget it. Down at the old ice plant down on Spring Avenue. And when he paid me that dollar, I was so afraid somebody was going to take it away from me. I ran all the way home down the Cotton Belt Railroad tracks, clear to Front Street. And my job, really the first job that I really had was working for Odom Drug Company, who was located at that time on the north side of the square. And I guess I worked for Odom about 5, 6, 7 years perhaps. And my next job was I worked for Dietrich French Market. And I worked for them about 9 years. And this was a place, a grocery store that maybe some of you will remember. They used to roast their own coffee and had a coffee pot out in the front of the store. And when they was roasting their coffee, you could smell this coffee all over town. Now, I don't mean, well, all over town practically, because at that time, Tyler was a very small town. And then my next job was, I worked for Felder Music Company. I worked for Felder Music Company in Dallas, Texas, about 22 years as shipping and receiving clerk. And the next job I worked for was North American Aviation out at Grand Prairie. I was assistant to the foreman in the cleanup department. And I worked out there, I guess, about a year before I went into the service. And if you want to consider the service as being in the job, I was in the United States Navy for approximately 3.5 years. And most of the time that I was in the Navy, most of my time was spent as shore patrolman. And I went from shore patrolman, and my first job was the mailman, because I was so familiar with mail. That was my first job. The next one was, I was shore patrolman, and from shore patrolman in Great Lakes, Illinois, I was transferred to Farragut, Idaho, and I got on shore patrol there, and I was on shore patrol in Farragut, Idaho. In fact, I was the very first Negro to ever appear on the streets of Spokane, Washington, with black shore patrolmen. At that time, we didn't have no black shore patrolmen in Spokane. So I was in charge of carrying my picks, and my picks was 3 men that I picked to go to Spokane, Washington with us. And we did such a beautiful job over there. They let us, we remained there. They put us over there on trial. But after so long a time, seeing the job that we was doing, we stayed there 3 years. And I guess that was the last job that I had.
What was it like for blacks during that time in the service?
In the service? Well, at that time, and the blacks had the blacks and the whites had the whites. We stayed, and we had a barracks, and there was no mixing. However, there was in my company, I remember that there was, if I remember correctly, if you know that you couldn't call this mixing because they were people, I forget we call them geeches. I don't know what you would call them now. They had a broken language, but we had many of them in our companies. And I think that at that time, I do remember this very regularly, that the blacks stayed in their barracks and the whites had their barracks. We were separate. But when I went from Chicago to Great Lakes, it was altogether different. Then that's where I had my first experience of living with an integrated group of people. Just all nations and all nationalities. We all slept and ate together. So I find that very amusing, and I love that.
When was this? This was in the early 40s?
That,
talking about,
no, it was not in the early 40s. It was between the early 40s and 45, because I believe, if I remember correctly, I was dismissed in November 45. Dismissed, I meant discharged, rather.
Tell me of the progress, if any, of civil rights for blacks in Tyler. are blacks better off in tile today than, say, 40 years ago?
Yes, I would think so. I would think they are. I think they have improved quite a bit. I think the civil rights, I think which was passed back in 57, I'm not too sure of that, but whenever it was passed, 54, I think that was when it was passed by Dr. King. I think he was one of the most interesting person along about that time to work with that until he got it into effect, and that civil, it has did a lot for the black people, and I think here in Tyler that I have seen a lots of progress, and it really gives me a lot of inspirations to see my people doing the jobs and holding the positions that they are holding, and it has been very, very inspiring to me. I see my people now doing work now that they couldn't back in the older days. They didn't even think of it. And I tell you what, it was a dream that Martin Luther brought back into reality, and that dream was real, and it was a real dream. Now then, I can remember the first Negro had a car. When he bought his first car, and it was a Ford Model T, I believe that was the very first Ford that he bought. And he wasn't allowed on the square with that Model T Ford. And he was a good friend of mine. And I never will forget that. And it had what you call it, a rumble seat in it. He bought the car brand new. And so, going from that up to where we are right now, as I look around, and the things and the progress that I see the blacks have made, they have fine homes, they have fine good jobs, some of them, and then some of them they have really and truly turned out to be professionals in their field of work. I'd like to say my son and my grandson-in-law, he is one of the most, I look upon him as a great person because the work that he has done and is doing back there then, it was something that you just didn't think of. A person climbing poles or whatever that job consists of. It just did not, those kind of jobs didn't exist. But they exist today, and I think that the only thing that I know and I can say to my people is to keep on keeping on doing the work that they're doing and keep on making the progress that they are making, which I think it is great. It's great, and I think they're doing a wonderful job.
How did white people react to black people, say, when you went downtown, say, 40 years ago, compared to the way things are now?
Well, really, I don't know how they acted. I can remember when I was a boy. That they lynched a black man down on the square, and I never will forget it. When I was in my kindergarten school, you might say, that they came through up here on Scott Street. You probably have heard of it. They came through up there on Scott Street and Herndon Street, and they just went into the black people's houses up there and looking for this man. And I don't know where they found him, but they did find him. They finally found him, and I think they killed him right there on the courthouse square. Now that has been years ago. I don't even know. But I was nothing but a little boy then. I can remember that now. When I grew up, and speaking of how that, I never got myself in the position that they would treat me one way or the other, because I had no dealings with them. They didn't have any dealings with me no more than the people that I worked for. And they were really not Caucasians. I don't know just exactly. I think they was more or less Frenchmen. And I think that they was the most wonderfulest people that I've ever known. And I worked for them for 9 years. And at that time, Swan Furniture Company was right across the street where it is right now. And also, there used to be a grocery store right there on the corner. And there used to be another place, they used to have a fellow, I believe they called him Chili Mac. And he had the best chili as you want to eat, or you could get anywhere.
What was the biggest single change in your life and why?
Well, the biggest change in my life came when I accepted Jesus Christ to be my Lord and Savior. That is the biggest change that ever happened to me, because I was the kind of a person that nobody could tell me anything back there. And I primarily belonged to a church that after so long a time, I guess I belonged to that church from a child. But I did not actually, without naming the church, I would prefer not to, but after being born into the church where I am now, has been elevated from the state Sunday school superintendent to, I went from that level to another level, which is that I'm pastoring now. And I have been pastoring now for approximately 25 years. And I'm now pastoring. I pastored Ian Tyler I pastored about 9 years in Tyler. Then I was assistant pastor the rest of the time, and then after then I'd taken a year's leave, and after the year's leave I was transferred to Kilgore, where I'm presently now located. And I love the work, and I love the pastoring, and I say pastoring. I'm not a preacher, but I am what I call myself a pastor. And I try to do them both. I try to pastor, try to preach, and teach. And now that is the biggest change that has come into my life, because before all of this happened and before these things happened in my life, I think that I was pretty well off for a while. My father, when he passed, he saw to my well-being, and he was very, very concerned about his children. And after then, sometimes when you got 15, 20 cents in your pocket and you got just a little money, then can't nobody tell you nothing. And this is just about what happened to me. I like to be frank about it, because at that time, when a black man had the money that my father had willed for me and my sister and brother, it would be like looking at $60,000 or $70,000 to my part that my father left me for me to get my schooling, because at that time that my father wanted me to, he was a real role model for me. He didn't have an education, but he wanted me to get an education. In fact, he wanted all of the children to get an education. But as I say just a few minutes back, that when you get to the position that you think you know everything, can't nobody tell you anything, that's when you're just fixing to go by and go off. But anyway, during that time, is just the way that I felt. And I want to say this to anyone that's listening to this tape, listening to this, anytime that you've got money, you've got friends. You've got friends, and when your money is gone, your friends are gone.
Did you or do you belong to any social clubs
No, I
or
do not.
fraternity or church group?
As I said, I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring there for about 25 years. And I'm pastoring for the Church of the Living God, telling grounds of the truth. And I've been with this congregation and with this brotherhood now for over 30-some odd years.
Is there anybody, any person or any incident that had a great impact or influence on your life to make you be what you are? Is there any particular person?
Yes, I would think so. My aunt, see, my mother passed when I was young. My mother passed when I was 6 years of age. And my aunt raised me. And then from that time, then my father did the best that he could. He did not have an education. Neither did my auntie have an education. So I hustled and done the best that I could. Finished in high school and went to Butler College. Did the things that I knew to do. But it still, my advancements in the college part was not very much because I wasn't interested in it like I was. I was only trying to carry out the will of my father, what he wanted. But it didn't interest me because I thought that I knew enough that I didn't even need to go to college and go to school. Or go to college at least. So far as the influence, as far as my auntie, she really and truly, as much as she knew how and as much as her training would carry her, which she was a very beautiful person to me. In fact, she was like a mother. She is the one that carried me. And she was really, again, she was my next role model. My auntie was. And she was just a person that everybody loved. I say everybody loved, everybody in that neighborhood loved, and that was in the same neighborhood that I was brought up.
Well, what about college? You said I noticed you mentioned you went to Butler College.
Yeah, that was very short-lived. I didn't go out that too long because I was just in and out. I'll tell you, my sister at that time, we had a car, I never will forget it. We had a car, at least she did. She and my brother, they had a car together. And she would carry me to school. And to be very honest with you, I would beat her back home. After she carried me to school, I would beat her back home sometimes. But that was my fault, and really and truly, I regretted that. It was one of the biggest mistakes a person could make.
In the history of the black race, what do you want the general public to know and why?
What I want the public to know, perhaps they already know, how that the blacks have. I want the blacks to, I'll say this, in answering, I hope this will answer that question, that I'm hoping that all illiterates, all of those that are literate, I pray to God that they will try to get some advancements in their learning and in their education. And most of all, I would think that any child, any boy or girl that could get away from habits that's mostly existing among us today, and push those things out completely out of their lives and get first of all, the very first thing I would like for them to do is to get if I may place it like this, a spiritual education, but they need them both. They need the spiritual, they need the spiritual education and also the schooling education, school, high school, colleges, and whatever. They need that. And what I would like to leave behind I believe was a big part of that question was that they just continue to be humble and let that little light shine. It may not be too much of a light, but let it shine where that others can see it, and which is it is badly needed today throughout Tyler, and from Tyler as an example throughout the whole world.
Thank you for your time. Your comments have been real meaningful and very educational. Thank you.
Well, there's so much more that I'd like to say, and I'd like to but I don't wanna say it now. I think we've concluded it, but there's lots more there.
Whatever you have to say, go right ahead and say it.
Well, I think let's close it right here.